Hello, you Avengers aficionados. It's Jerry Rasco back with you. And yes, today we are talking about the Avengers. And the next issue in this ongoing series, we are talking about Avengers number 7. So we are going to check out this book together. We're going to see some returning characters, some that we've seen in other books, some that we've seen here in the Avengers. So that's kind of interesting. And yeah, we'll go through it together, as we always do, page by page, panel by panel. Of course, I want to thank everybody for all of your support. The channel is growing by leaps and bounds, and that, of course, is all thanks to everybody who has been supporting, spreading the word, and clicking that subscribe button. Thank you so much. Clicking that subscribe button really does help out any YouTube channel, so I really do appreciate you taking the time to do that. If you're new and finding this video for the first time through your algorithm, please consider subscribing to the channel. We put out 5, as of the recording of this video, 5 new review series every week. And to celebrate all of that, I am doing an art giveaway. When we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will be choosing 6 random subscribers, and each of those people will win one piece of original, one-of-a-kind artwork that celebrate all the series that we have on the channel, including the one that has not even launched yet. So if you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, let me show you what you have a chance of winning if you click that subscribe button. So we start off with the Amazing Spider-Man. We have the X-Men. We have the Hulk. We have, of course, the Avengers. We have Captain America in his solo series. And then the next one that will be debuting soon is the Fantastic Four. So the 6 people that are picked at random will win one of the each person will win one of these pieces of artwork, and it is 100% free. Obviously, clicking the subscribe button is free, but even the shipping of the art to the people will be free as well. So we'll have a special stream to do that when we hit the 1,000 subscribers. But how fast that happens is all up to you. So if you haven't click subscribe now. Pass along the word. Find other folks that may be interested in this sort of comic history that we're doing here. And if the faster we get to 1,000 subscribers, the sooner that artwork gets out into everybody's hands. So that out of the way, let's talk about Avengers number 7. Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. So here is Avengers number 7, and you can see we've got, again, as I mentioned, some reoccurring characters. What I mean, of course, we just saw Baron Zemo in the previous issue, and then the 2 other characters are from Thor's Rogues Gallery. On the left, we have the Executioner, character that was portrayed by Carl Urban in the Thor Ragnarok movie, and the Enchantress, somebody that we have not seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least as far as I know, but again, is a big part of Thor's Rogues Gallery. So, also, the Executioner did show up in a recent issue of The Incredible Hulk. So if you go back to my Hulk review series, a couple issues back, you'll see the Executioner makes a guest appearance there as well. So let's talk about the cover here. So the first note that I made, I thought it was very funny. For whatever reason, all the villains are throwing up peace signs. Now, the Enchantress, of course, can cast spells. She is a witch or a sorceress or whatever term you want to use from Asgard. So perhaps she's trying to cast a spell or is casting a spell upon Thor. Of course, Baron Zemo has no such powers, but he is also making similar hand gestures. And the Executioner, I don't know. His Asgardian powers are a little vague. I just assumed that he was a big, strong, tough guy with a magic axe, but he is also doing that sort of apparently magic casting hands that look peace signs. So I thought that was funny. And the other thing here is they all look like they're crouched below the horizon, like they're hiding behind this lump of rock that Thor is standing on. But of course that doesn't work because Thor's right leg is not standing on anything. So they can't be really there in person. It's more of like that montage of the evil villains kind of looming over the hero as they're puppeting him or controlling him. There's a couple other ways you could do this. You could put them up higher. Of course, with today's technology, you might want to ghost them out by lowering the opacity, making them more translucent, so that it shows that they're not really supposed to be there in person. Beyond that, the figure of Thor is pretty good. I really do like the wings on the helmet. A lot of times we don't see them from this particular angle, and that is kind of a tough angle to do, and it's done well. The musculature of him swinging the hammer around is quite good, so that part is nice. This, of course, is a Jack Kirby cover, and then we have a couple other things that I kind of go, eh. One, Giant Man's head is out of proportion. Yes, he is a giant, but that head is a little bit large for even the scale of his body. So that's a little iffy. And then one other thing I want to point out, which does go on quite a bit in this issue, is my personal pet peeve with the Captain America shield. I really love the shield design. It's something I've been a big fan of for a long time. I think it's awesome. And to me, what we're seeing right here is the correct design, meaning it is 3 stripes with the star in the center. So it's red, white, red, the blue center with the white star. That's what we see today. That is consistent. It's what we see in the movies. It's what we see, again, in today's comics. It did not always stay that way. There's a lot of variation even inside of this book itself on the same page. Sometimes it's this pattern, other times it's different patterns. Again, I have no problem with changing it or making it a different pattern. Just be consistent, and we do lack that in the comic here a lot. So that all out of the way of the cover. It's an okay cover. It's not superb. There's a few ways I would like the figures here to maybe be in more direct contact and direct confrontation with each other. I think that could have been cool. There's ways to do it with maybe Thor standing over the rest of the Avengers as they're on the ground, semi-defeated with his hammer up, and then the villains in the background. Again, there's a lot of ways you can kind of pull off this motif that I think might be more effective. So let's get into the comic itself here. As I always love to tell you, this is a scanned PDF copy of the comic. This is something that Marvel did in the early 2000s, where they got their hands on all of these incredibly valuable Silver Age comics that I do not have in my collection. So this is an awesome way for us to view these. We can zoom in, zoom out, flip the pages around, but we still have all of the original design and page layout. That is important to me. Yes, you can go buy digital copies of all these comics in a lot of places, but they're often recolored or reprinted so that when that happens, the ads are different and sometimes there's fill-ins. I just saw a post online today about an X-Men comic from the 90s that I have, that when they went to reprint it into like the graphic novel format, which doesn't have ads, they had to have a different artist add 2 different pages to make the page counts work. So all of a sudden you're reading with one artist and the whole style is here, and all of a sudden you turn the page and it's completely different artist, completely different style for one page that didn't exist in the original. I don't like that. This is as close as we can get to the original from 1964. So that's why I love this format so much. Let's talk about the creative team. We have the regular team lineup is here. We've got Stan Lee on script. We've got Jack Kirby on pencils, and we have Chic Stone on inks. And sometimes we don't mention them as much, but we do have Artie Simic as the letterer. So again, part of that regular Team Supreme that we've seen so far. I have my own, feelings about this pairing of Jack Kirby and Chic Stone. It's better than some inkers, over Jack Kirby. It's not as good as others. So I'll point out some stuff. It feels like, as we're going through, and we're between the Avengers, the X-Men, and Captain America solo series right now, all the issues we're doing, are all Jack Kirby and Chic Stone collaborations. So I feel like we're talking about a lot of the same points over and over. We will, as we continue, get through that to other artists down the line, so just bear with me. Story recap. There's not a ton to really talk about because this is sort of a brand new story, even though there are a little bit of threads. So, as I mentioned, we just saw Baron Zemo for the first time in the previous issue. Captain America understands that he was responsible for him being put into ice and Bucky Barnes' death. And so Captain America continues his quest for vengeance against Baron Zemo. But in terms of an ongoing story, it was all wrapped up in the last issue. There was no real ongoing plot line. So we're starting fresh with a brand new meeting of the Avengers. And to be honest, there's a little bit of this where I go, this is a little silly. This premise I find a little silly. So let me explain. So first of all, let's go through just the general artwork of it. Pretty good in terms of the solid line work. The contour lines, the outlines that make up the form are done pretty well. The anatomy, the posture of Iron Man, you can tell he is the center of attention and doesn't want to be. The slight head dip, the hands behind the back, that's very nice. Thor pointing the hammer, Captain America kind of scratching his chin a little bit. Again, that's what I typically refer to as business, meaning you could just have your character standing with their hands to their sides, or like Thor, both hands on his hips, whatever you want. These are more slightly naturalistic poses. Even Giant Man sitting in a giant chair and kind of holding his hands in his lap. But this is where it gets silly. Why is Giant Man a Giant Man? Why isn't he shrunk down to normal size when they're just having a regular meeting? There's no reason for him to be giant size. It doesn't make sense. When he's giant size, you have to have a giant chair. Why would they need a giant chair? Point out the fact that I just mentioned Cap's shield changes sometimes panel to panel. So here we have a different pattern. Red, white, blue. So there's an extra stripe in there. Again, I like it with the 3 stripe in the center. I think it makes the star in the middle a lot bigger, which I think works better. One of the things I mention a lot about so far in all of these Jack Kirby Chic Stone collaborations is the lack of shadows. So one of the things we don't see in this artworks pairing is a lot of really deep shadows. Now, you have black on Thor's costume. Really, though, that has nothing to do with the lighting. In a shadow, that, I think, this is my 2 cents, and, people have debated this for years, because his leggings are not the same, shaded in the same way. So that tells me that Thor's, we'll call it his, I guess his shirt. His shirt and his shorts, we'll call them that, are black. It's actually black with blue highlights, where his pants are blue. So that's why we don't see that same shading. Giant Man is kind of leaning over. There's no big shadow below him. There's no shadow on sort of the abdomen area where he's bent over, where that would the light might not hit as strongly. There's just a lot of that, and that's a very Chic Stone thing. We don't see a ton of the big dark inks, which really do help fill out a form, help establish the 3-dimensionality of the form and where the light is coming from. We just don't see it. Okay, so story-wise, the Avengers have called Iron Man and are holding him accountable because 6 days ago, they called him for help. And this happened in Iron Man. We're not reviewing Iron Man on this channel, at least not at this point. So I don't know what the story was, but he apparently did not heed the call of the Avengers. So he feels bad about it. He goes, "Yep, you guys called. I couldn't do it. I had a personal issue, and I dealt with that instead of coming to the call of the Avengers." I mean, seems very silly that this is a major issue. On one hand, they tell him, Captain America says right here, they've pledged not to pry into each other's personal lives. So the guy's like, hey, I had a personal problem. My hands were full. These people have individual lives. They have individual adventures. They have individual foes and battles. How do they know he wasn't literally in the middle of a life or death situation and can't drop everything to heed the Avengers' calls? So it's just kind of silly, and they basically suspend him for a week, which is ridiculous. I mean, really? It's not like they're employed. It's not like they're, the military. This is a completely voluntary basis. And then they're going to be suspended for a week. Silly. As I mentioned, again, like the lack of shadows and as well kind of a lack of serious backgrounds. Things are very thin. You just have a line. They're standing on a floor in a white void. There's a table there. We never saw a table. There was no table here as they were standing around. There's no table here. Suddenly they're around a table. And I will say this, if you actually drew this out and figured out where, well, you know what? I was going to say Giant Man's legs are too short, but honestly, if you draw it out, his feet might be about there, which is about the same as Captain America. So actually might not work, or might actually work. Something here to make sure you avoid in your own comics that happens several times on this panel. Do not have your figures standing on the panel border like Iron Man here in a couple of panels. That's not a good idea. Again, the panel borders are a frame into a window that we're looking through. When the character is standing on that panel, it pushes them right to the front of that picture frame. No longer are they in it. So it flattens out your attempts at creating that illusion of two-dimensionality. Now, I will say this. We have a very good visual transition here from scene to scene that we don't see very often. Talk about it all the time. My 3 transitions. Your page turn. So we go from one scene, we turn the page, we're in another scene. You have your thematic, which is maybe they're talking about Thor talks about Asgard or talks about my father. Only my father could have judged better or whatever. And then you cut to Odin in the next panel. Those are thematic, where a theme from one panel goes into the next scene. This is visual. Thor and his father are in nearly the same positions, the same size, both, handing out a proclamation. That is a great visual transition and something that is easy to use from scene to scene. So that's a really nice piece there. As we cut to the Asgard, the Enchantress, and the Executioner. Now, if I remember correctly, I'd have to... Yeah, he says it here. The Executioner has a crush, unrequited love of the Enchantress. She, on the other hand, only has eyes for Thor. So the Executioner is often sort of a pawn of the Enchantress, and she gets him to do her bidding, which apparently has happened in Journey into Mystery. And by attacking Thor, they have gotten Odin upset with them, and he is banishing them, cutting down their powers, taking their weapons, and sending them to Earth. So they're still powerful, but not quite the level they would be on Asgard. And off they go. Now, whenever you have this stuff, these Asgardian designs, you got these people, banging on drums. Every character is a different headdress, weapon, capes, all this stuff. Crazy, lots of different repeating geometric patterns, like on the Enchantress's leggings there. I mean, this is Jack Kirby's wheelhouse. Like this, you could tell this is the kind of stuff he loves. And if you're familiar with Jack Kirby's career path, eventually he leaves Marvel and heads to DC. And at DC, he creates a thing called the Fourth World and the New Gods, which is characters like Darkseid and who's the other one? Orion, I think. All these characters. And they are very reminiscent to me of the Asgardian sort of designs, right? It's sort of a quasi-futuristic barbarian sort of mix and match with, again, all these repeating geometric shapes, crazy designs, headdresses, capes, all this crazy stuff. And it's just, you can tell it's just what he loves. It's what his passion is, and that's where you get this big page so that he can put as much of that into it as possible. So the Executioner and the Enchantress are sent to Earth, and here they appear, and of course in the middle of Midtown Manhattan, causing a stir. And this is a good example of what I often refer to when we're talking about Chic Stone and his inking. I talk about thin inks. So what I mean by thin inks is, like, in the panel next to it here, the Executioner is in the foreground with this cop and the Enchantress, so you want to separate them from the background. So one of the ways you do it, which is done here, is with a thicker contour line around the figures, and you thicken it even more on the edges that are on the opposite side of the light. So like the cop's arm here, if the light is coming from above because it's sunshine outside, the bottom part of his sleeve, this contour line is going to be thicker than the top one, and that's actually done pretty well. Here, though, in the wide shot, everything is basically done with the exact same line. The line outlining the cars is the same outlining the people. Everything is sort of this flat, dead line. It's a very mechanical line, and is reminiscent of either technical pens, rapidograph. Nowadays, we have things like micron pens, and there's a ton of drawing pens out there, but it doesn't have the life to it. It's very thin, very flat. And that's what we're seeing. On top of the fact that we're looking from above, 2 cars have shadows. None of the people have shadows. None of the rest of the fender over the tire doesn't have a shadow. I mean, it's just very hit or miss in terms of lighting and consistency, which is something that, I do wish was better. There's some dramatic lighting. I hate to say it's a pretty minimal here, but this panel 5 down at the bottom, they're hiding around the corner, and the building is casting a shadow on the Executioner's face a little bit. Excuse me. That separates him, puts him behind it. The wall is blocking the light. That's a very subtle little shadow there, but it's nice. I'm sure Jack Kirby would have drawn that. It makes me wonder if just in the speed of drawing these pages, he assumed, well, I'll just draw the figures, and then Chic Stone, the inker, will fill in the shadows. And he just didn't. So anyway, here we go with the Enchantress and the Executioner get the idea, like, they don't know much about Earth, but hey, here's a bad guy, and he was dealing with the Avengers, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Maybe they're going to give him a call. And then we have a page turn transition. It's not quite the same as an actual turn where you flip the page, but at least we're completing our scene on one page and starting a new scene on the other, which is fine. My only problem, I don't really have any issue with the art of this sequence, again, other than the fact that there's just no backgrounds to establish us in space. When you start a scene, like, for example, well, here, when we started the scene with Odin and the Executioner and Enchantress, we very quickly cut to this wide scene that establishes, oh, here's where we are. This must be Odin's throne room. This makes sense. All the other Asgardians. This isn't just like down the street from the Avengers. Okay, that part is fine. However, when you establish, we're changing scenes of Captain America, draw the outside of the gym or wherever it is that they're working out. If it's Avengers Mansion, show Avengers Mansion from the outside. I don't know what it is, but it says it's a gym. But the point is, you have to establish where they are. When you just cut scenes and there's no background, there's no, are they in a, he says these are wrestlers. There's no ring. They're not in a wrestling ring. It's just a room. So there's no pads. There's nothing that would indicate it's a gym. There's no punching bag, no weights, no nothing. These are all little things that help establish your whole scene and are completely vacant from this sequence. So in terms of the figure work is perfectly fine. Inks are pretty good. The choreography of the fight is interesting. The way Cap moves in a different kind of way. I like the one where he's ducking the guys and they're, a bunch of them are clobbering into each other. That part's fine and cool. My biggest problem with the whole thing is I go, why? What does this get us in regards to the plot of this story? Other than watching Captain America's a tough guy. Okay, we've seen that. This is not our first Avengers. We also have his solo series to read. Even if you're new to the Avengers, and this is the first issue of the Avengers you pick up, we're going to see Captain America in action later. We don't need this here. And it just becomes a waste of those pages only because there's so many. I'm just real quick, right? We're going to flip through. Every page has 6, 7, 8 plus panels over and over. Wouldn't it be nice to have some more breathing room, especially in all of the fighting scenes? When there's action, I want big panels for big action, and we don't have it a lot. So this whole sequence here, I go, why? I don't understand it. Now, same thing. So Captain America is training, beats up these guys real fast. So we learn that he's super tough, and now he's musing away still about, and don't get me wrong, I say he's still musing away at the loss of his friend Bucky Barnes. There's no limit to grief, there's no limit to PTSD, and that's what we're seeing here, which is fine. We can continue that storyline through the Avengers as we're delving into Captain America and his character and fleshing him out more. It's great. There's other ways to do it. Establishing an entire page plus of him just being angry that Rick Jones tried on Bucky's costume, even though the first time he saw him, he told him he looked exactly like Bucky. He's been training him. That even comes into play later. Captain America gets incredibly mad at him, tells him, don't you ever call yourself my partner. But then later Rick is like, well, Cap taught me this and Cap taught me that. What are you doing? He wants it one way. Oh, I'll teach you judo. I'll teach you how to defend yourself. I'll teach you how to fight. But don't pretend to be my partner, because that brings up bad memories for me. So it's, the thing about it here again, the plot wise, sorry, I know so much of these series, I try to focus on the art. That's the idea. We're really here to review the artwork and not so much the storyline. However, the two things come to play here. When you're breaking down a story into the number of pages, and then each page, how many panels you need to have. If you don't have this part of the story, does it affect the plot? No. Captain America can still express his grief over the loss of Bucky Barnes. He can still express his desire for revenge against Baron Zemo. This all happens later. It's perfectly fine. This does not, Rick Jones does not show up in Bucky Barnes' costume in this issue and distract Zemo and frighten him thinking he's a ghost, and that's what gives Captain America the upper hand. If that was the plot point, this becomes critical. That's not the plot. So why do you need this? You don't. And again, every page, every panel is precious. When you're doing your comics, this is what happens all the time. I see it constantly from, and I always use the term younger. We'll say newer creators. Especially someone who's trying to write their own first comic. You write and you think you have all the room in the world, and then you get to the last 2 to 3 pages and you've got to squeeze in the entire climax of your story in 2 or 3 pages, and instead of nice 3-4 panel pages with big lush drawings, great backgrounds, great scenes, excellent battles, action, now all of a sudden you got 2 to 3 pages. There's 9 panels per page to squeeze in everything you need because you weren't efficient with your storytelling. And this is not efficient storytelling. There's no purpose other than, is it cool to see Captain America beat up some regular dudes that are supposed to be professional wrestlers? Sure. Again, does it affect the plot? No. Does it tell us something about Captain America we did not know before? No. So why are we doing it? It's really silly. So yeah. And so anyway, now we talked earlier about the good transitions that we had. this one is another visual transition. It's both thematic and visual. We have Captain America talking about Zemo, excuse me, and how he'll pay for it. He's got that little in his mind's eye, that image of Baron Zemo, and then we cut to Baron Zemo. So that part is really good. The image here of him sitting at his throne, that's actually surprisingly harder than you would think. I've had to draw that kind of pose a few times in comics of the character sitting on a throne facing us. And it's the foreshortening of the upper legs where you have to draw them a little bit. If you just have the knee, it looks very flat. It looks very odd. And then you also have to factor in the depth of the seat that they're on and make it really 3D. So there's perspective and foreshortening going on. And it can be a surprisingly more difficult pose than you would think without either referencing it or really taking your time with it. I've struggled with it a few times. Once you get it, you get it. And it's something that I feel comfortable with now. But yeah, the first time I had to do it, I was like, oops. I was like, that is really tough. Okay, so we have the Enchantress and the Executioner, and they appeal to Zemo, and they're like, we want Thor, but here's the deal. We'll help you defeat Captain America, and you can help us with Thor. And he's like, you got it. And so they're all about it. This is now a bad transition. So here we have nothing visual that goes from panel to panel, not even thematic, other than the fact that they're not even really talking about the Avengers. He's talking about his old allies, the Radioactive Man and the Melter from the previous issue. So they're not here. So there's no real theme. And of course, it's not a page turn. So that's not a great transition to go from this to now this scene of Giant Man and the Wasp taking off, leaving the Avengers, Thor going his own way, and now we're left with Captain America, who is confronted by a stranger. Okay. Again, plot affects the art. Here's what I mean. There's nothing wrong with kind of these two pages. There's a whole idea here that the Executioner, the Enchantress, and Baron Zemo, their plan is to split the Avengers apart so that they can isolate Thor. Spoilers, obviously we're going through it, you'll see. He is then brainwashed by the Enchantress to believe that the Avengers are evil. And then they sick Thor on the Avengers to defeat them. Why would you wait and want them to separate, only again to have them pulled back together? Just wait for Thor to leave. Who cares about Captain America? Who cares about Giant Man and the Wasp? And so this whole plot here is getting Thor to to get Captain America after Baron Zemo. Why wouldn't you just have Thor smash him? There's too many concurrent plots here going on at the same time that sort of contradict each other. It doesn't make a lot of sense in the end. And if you have, again, like I said, more efficient storytelling, then I don't need to have 7 panels on 2 concurrent pages where, I mean, this panel right here of Thor getting ready to take off original art can't be more than 3 inches by 5 inches. 3 inches by 5 inches and then reduced down to comic size. So yeah, no wonder you have itty bitty figures with no definition, you can't even read their faces. It's just like a little dash of facial features. I mean, it's crazy. And here's what I was complaining about. The shield design is literally changing from panel to panel. Like, I get it, pick one. I don't have a problem if on the cover it's one and on the interior it's all the other one. So be it. But consistency from panel to panel, for crying out loud. You reference your own drawing. I mean, I don't get it. And then, this guy, this panel's pretty good. This facial design of this guy with the the monocle, the big bald head, the wrinkles. The face is done really well. Captain America's face is also drawn very well. I'm not a big fan of the mask like this, where it's the eye holes are so tight around his eyes that all you see is the eyes through, as opposed to holes, kind of cut around the eyes. That's just me. And then we find out, of course, this is the Executioner. This is all part of their grand plot. So Giant Man will be gone. Iron Man is been suspended, so he won't be around. Captain America is off to a far distant land, so Thor, they'll get their hands on Thor and brainwash him. But then you have to wait for the Avengers to come back for Thor to smash them on your orders. Okay. And here's where it happens. Thor is lured by the Enchantress, and before he can even realize what's happening, she's got an initial lock on him, and then she gives him this magic potion to drink, which then really allows her to put her mental hooks into him. One of the things I noted here is this is a very boyish face on Thor. Both this panel here and this where he's laying down, he looks extremely youthful. And I don't know, I don't know what it is exactly, if it's the nose maybe. I don't know. There's just something about it just comes off as extremely youthful. This is very nice. So this is what the Enchantress is brainwashing Thor to believe, is that the Avengers are secretly these evil characters, possibly like demons, and they are really his enemies, even though they posed as his friends. And I like this a lot. These are really good, cool stuff there. The evil Avengers are really nice. And you have some pretty good angles on the Iron Man face, like kind of looking up. We got some decent inks on this character being way in the foreground like that. Like overall, not so bad. This is pretty interesting splash there. So now, yep, she wakes him up, and yep, he is absolutely convinced that the Avengers were his friends, but he knows them to be enemies. And now we cut to Captain America, who's going after Baron Zemo. There's no relation to this. There's no visual relation. There's nothing. It makes no sense. But it's fine. We just have to change scenes. And then, now I understand Zemo wanted, his goal is to destroy Captain America. But wasn't the point of this partnership was, you help us destroy Thor, we'll help you destroy Captain America? Why wouldn't the Executioner and the Enchantress be involved in the destruction of Captain America? I mean, we know that Zemo can't do it. He's already failed, like twice, at least. So why? Okay. And again, the shield design is changing from panel to panel. 4 stripes, 3 stripes in 2 different panels right next to each other. Silliness. Absolute silliness. I do like the concept, though, that the shield will absorb the energy of the impact. We've seen that in obviously later comics, as well as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The interesting properties of the shield will allow him to survive great falls, things like this, and then continue to use it as a weapon. It's fine here, flinging the shield, beating up the bad guys, no problem. As he's attacking, he falls into a trap. Now, this is, again, kind of, I'm going to chalk it up to maybe the inking, is my assumption. He appears to be, I'm assuming he is falling into a hole. The problem is the line work and the inking of the background, which is supposed to be this hole, doesn't look like a hole. It's not, there's no bottom. I can't tell. There's sort of weird shading. Is it dark? Are there lines coming up the walls? What perspective am I looking at? It's very unclear. if you want to show Cap falling down the hole, one of the ways to do it, and of course you can't because I just talked about all this, the panel's so small. If we cut out all this superfluous junk plot that we don't need, hey, this could be twice as wide. You put Cap in the middle, you could see the edge of the hole around him, so you'd see where he's falling in through the ground. Put that black bottom down there to show how deep it is, and boom, you actually can tell what's happening, that he's falling down in a hole and not just against some gray rock surface. Yeah, it's not rocket science. So again, now the Giant Man has to come back. I don't know how Giant Man would have interfered with them brainwashing Thor to start with, and why it was so important to wait till he left. I don't know. Thor, you know, if they don't live together 24/7, Thor has his own personal stuff. We've seen it. I don't know. This isn't bad, where we see him coming at the helicopter through the windscreen or through the windshield. So you go, whoa, that's okay. He's attacking. And then Giant Man becomes large. Wasp shrinks down as Thor smashes the helicopter around them. That's kind of cool. And the closest we've got to like a big panel for action. So I can't complain too much about that. The good thick outline of the debris that is closer to us than the figures are, that's done pretty well also. So not so bad there. And then this idea, like he grew to 40 feet tall and he lands on top of this building to save himself is pretty cool as well. We usually don't see Giant Man quite this large. So that's really, that's a neat scene there. I like that. Iron Man finally gets wind and decides he's going to apparently finish his cigarette and then join the team. Again, it's 1964, so, you know, we have a very different understanding of cigarettes today. The guy with the pacemaker suit, probably not a good idea to be a heavy smoker, but we know we're smarter now. We know that now. So Iron Man jumps in to help, and then we see what's going on. So the Enchantress and the Executioner are watching. And other than them controlling Thor, I don't understand how much they're helping or how this partnership is working. In fact, if anything, the Enchantress kind of ruins it. She strangely decides she's going to try to... It could have left Captain America in the hole. He's stuck in the bottom of a hole. He's trapped there. Okay. He's either not going to be able to figure it out or leave him there for a while or whatever. She tries to get it to collapse on him and he just uses the rubble to climb out. So she kind of ruined it. Like, okay. This image of Captain America climbing up out of the ground, the grass, the branches and stuff in the foreground. That's a nice image there of Cap. That part works pretty well. Zemo's not done. They've got this super weapon. They're going to shoot at him. And then Captain America defeats them with a palm tree. Why not throw your shield? And here's the other part. Where'd the tree come from? Establish the tree right here. All you have to do is draw the tree trunk in the background. So when he grabs it, we know that there was a tree trunk nearby. This is one of those things where having your nebulous yellow background doesn't do you any good from a storytelling perspective. Yes, it's easier to draw. Yes, we don't necessarily need every blade of grass and every tree and every leaf. But when you do this and you don't establish the things that are actually part of the plot, like bending this tree to knock all the warriors down, you're doing yourself a great disservice. And then here, he gets behind the device himself and starts shooting it at everybody. It's not until 2 panels later we actually see the beam of what this gun does, and it destroys Zemo's sort of palace, you know, jungle palace. Show Captain America shooting the gun. Show him from behind. I don't need this view of him looking through these little spectacles and aiming. Show over his head. Show him shooting, hitting the ground, people flying all over. There's so much action to be there, and we missed it. We're not showing the important thing. having him look through the little viewfinder and people start to run as opposed to showing it the explosion, showing the beam, showing that. And again, we've got 8 panels on one page. We get rid of a few things and there's enough room to do it and let it all breathe. Zemo tries to escape, and Cap uses, this is kind of interesting, he uses his shield to magnetically adhere himself to Zemo's escape ship. So we know that the shield is attracted to the magnets on his glove. Like, they have magnets that are, of opposite polarity, so they would attract. Apparently, that magnetic field can also be applied, so his shield would stick to anything that's magnetic, that's ferrous, I guess. Giant Man gets his hands on Thor so that he can't clean out Iron Man with a hammer blow. Not bad. The 2 wrestling figures are pretty good there. Overall, solid enough as Thor's calling his hammer back to him, and he's so strong. Even a 12 to 12-foot Giant Man can't completely pin him down. Of course, Iron Man uses his tech to shine light, the correct frequency of light, into Thor's eyes, which breaks him out of this enchantment, and he has no idea what happened. So that's all back to normal. And conveniently, Zemo's ship, the Enchantress, is like, I'll pull Zemo here too. Let's all get together. So, which conveniently brings Captain America back into the fight as well. It's just, again, craziness. Not bad here where you see Zemo and Captain America struggling, and then the Executioner reaches into the broken windshield, the broken view screen, whatever you want to call it, and somehow, like, Vulcan nerve pinches Captain America and knocks him unconscious. And then they take Zemo. They're going to escape, the 3 of them, and Thor uses his hammer to send them somewhere that he has no idea. Could be a different city or a different universe. So there we go. We know that they will come back again. This Thor face, not good. Really not great. One of the things is he's looking down slightly, but the curve of the helmet does not follow the curve of his head. Obviously, our heads are not just round this way, they're round this way as well. So that is going to curve out there. It wouldn't go straight across his head. Nothing would go straight. And it would be dipping down slightly. The other part is the nose. It's almost like you can see the underside of his nose, like his nose is pinched up like that. We should see the top of it, the point of the nose, and maybe a little shadow underneath. That would be a better angle. And there we go. And then that is the end of this comic. Thank goodness. So we're going to go over to the desk and we will wrap this one up. So yeah, Avengers number 7, in case you did not tell, not a favorite of mine. Now, here's the deal. There have been plenty of Jack Kirby Chic Stone books, like I just mentioned earlier in the video. We've seen him on Captain America. We've seen him on the X-Men. We know that the 2 can work together and do good work and good storytelling. This one, combined with the silly plot, just has so many holes, so much stuff. I understand when you have a team book that sometimes you're going to have sort of an A plot, a B plot. Characters going to be doing different things at different times, so you've got to jump around. That part's all fine. I've done that in my own. My own self-published comic is a team comic. I am, off the top of my head, I got to think. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 characters in my superhero team that I feature at all times. And sometimes they're split up, fighting separately. Sometimes they're fighting together. So juggling that is something. And if anybody can do it, Jack Kirby can certainly do it. That's not the concern. The issue is just the plot makes no sense. There's so much fluff and just filler added in there that if you took that away and actually had some really cool fight scenes, like if you think about this fight between the Avengers, so Thor attacking the rest of the Avengers, it's like when you put it all together, it's all of maybe a page and a half tops. And I don't think there's no one panel that's any bigger than that one where he breaks the helicopter. I mean, it's crazy to me that you wouldn't take advantage of that. And how do you get rid of it? Or how do you get that opportunity to have half-page splashes and, big panels of Thor, punching Iron Man or something like that? Having that hammer go bang, off his armor. That'd be so cool. That's what we all want to see, and we didn't get it. But how do you get it? You get rid of the Captain America training page. You get rid of the whole thing with Rick Jones trying on the costume. You get rid of the whole wacky Zemo, like Cap going to the jungle to fight Zemo. Just have Zemo show up and attack Captain America in the US, then you don't have to have that whole section of how do we lure Captain America away. Don't have him ambushed. You save pages, you have a more efficient, clear storytelling, and you have room for the art to breathe. That's my big takeaway from this issue. I am going to give this a 3 out of 10. I understand it's, there's probably people that love it. They think it's iconic. Oh, we saw Zemo pair up with the Enchantress and the Executioner. I think the previous issue with the first appearance of the Masters of Evil is more iconic. I don't know that this pairing of the three is that iconic in my opinion, but that's me. Let me know what you think in the comments. Was this better than I thought it was? Is this a key Avengers issue that I'm just kind of missing on? Let me know your thoughts. I love to hear from you. I do check every video, so please drop those comments. Let me know your thoughts. And I'll leave you with one last thing. Don't forget to subscribe and join me here next week for more Avengers. Thanks.